Welcome to NinjaCast, a photography podcast powered by Studio Ninja, the world's highest-rated business management app, built specifically for photographers. Listen and learn as the most successful photographers on the planet share their knowledge to help you transform every element of your photography business. Here's your host, Sally Shaw.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of NinjaCast. Today I'm joined by the lovely Scott Josuweit. We're going to be covering all sorts today, from in-person sales right through to why systemizing your business is so important and how all of that leads straight back to your marketing. Let's get started. Hi Scott, how are you?
Hey Sally, I'm fantastic. Thanks so much for having me.
No, thank you for carving out some time in your busy schedule to come and join us. I know that you've got a little newborn there as well. So really, really grateful that you've made the time and given him somebody to look after so you can come and chat with us.
Of course, grandmas are the best right now. So
Absolutely.
I'm very, very grateful for them.
So Scott, for our listeners that might not have heard of you, especially us over here in the UK across the pond, can you tell us about your journey in the industry so far, what you've done, what your career's entailed?
Sure. By the way, I love your accent. It's wonderful. So my name is Scott Josuweit. I know the last name is always the one thing people always ask me about, like, how do you pronounce the last name? So it's spelled Josuweit. So that's how it's pronounced. Just like Joe is Caucasian, Joe's white. That's the easiest way to remember it there. And people always wonder why I didn't name my business after myself. Well, that would be why, because I would never, ever be found on Google with people trying to spell my last name. So I was actually a 7th grade special ed math teacher for 10 years. And then in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, I left that to go full time. Little did I know there would be a pandemic right around the corner. And thankfully, I was quite well prepared. I didn't know it at the time. I thought I was fairly well prepared, but of course, we all found out I don't think anyone was truly prepared for what we had ahead of us.
Really, you know?
No.
It was one of those once in a lifetime things, hopefully.
Yes. And then from there, I just kind of started doing photography as a little side hobby while I was being a teacher. And eventually got to the point one time where I was like, I am actually making more money doing this than I was as a teacher. And I really started to notice my passion shifting. And it was tough for me because I had got my master's. I was starting to consider working on my doctorate. Like, I was really deep into it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to throw away all those years and all of that money and those degrees to pursue something that has basically no security blanket and no guarantee. And I have to make it all work for myself. But I couldn't be happier that I did. And it's funny. I always heard people say, once you go full time, things will start shifting and changing. And you want to believe it, but you kind of can't when you're in the deep trenches of it all. But now that I'm on the other side of it, I can 100% say that, yes, truly things do shift and change. And the world just kind of has a way of making things work out if you work hard and put in the time.
Amazing. So, I mean, with a math background, surely that must influence the way you run your business a little bit. If I'm not a math person at all. I really struggled in school. And I can totally see that the jobs that kind of involve anything like that to do with my business, I'm like, yep, tomorrow, that one can do next week. I can imagine that they're still kind of your love points in your business. You must love doing your accounting, working out your profits for the year and, planning your years ahead and your 5-year plan.
Yeah, I guess I've always had a different approach to the photography and business side of things just because of that fact. And I think it's helped me have kind of a unique view in the end on it all. And basically just trying to ensure that I really knew the ins and outs of my business and kind of had different systems and automations and different things like that in place to make things run as smoothly as possible. And it's kind of cool. It's now come kind of full circle. And I'm now helping coach other photographers on, learning out all of these things too. And so it's combining my two passions of the old and new. and helping a lot of people, hopefully start to see that this stuff is not that difficult once you really just take the time to sit down and kind of be walked through it by someone who is doing it on a regular basis. So, I always tell people this stuff, it can be scary at first. I certainly understand, but I think once you take a little time and sit down with a mentor who is a good fit for you, it can really, really help kind of change your perspective that these things are not cold. They're not just this thing that your clients are just like, oh, I know that's an automated email. Oh no, like these things are in place to help us run efficient businesses that are profitable, and also just helps give a lot of great contact points to our clients, which at the end of the day, that's all they really want. They just want to be taken care of.
Absolutely. It's all about that experience, isn't it? And creating that kind of start to finish. You mentioned briefly there about systems. So I'd love to delve into that a little bit more with you. I mean, a lot of our listeners may be just starting out in their photography. They may have been, they're seasoned photographers. They've been around here ages, but they might not have the right systems in place. So they might feel, over here in the UK, we're height of wedding season right now. It's super busy for wedding photographers out there. There's a lot of people that are feeling like they're drowning. How can our listeners ensure they're consistent, they're systematized in their business?
So number one, I mean, I really think this goes for anybody, no matter what point in their business they are at, you need to have a CRM. And I'm not just saying that because I am on here. It is just the number one thing I tell everyone is right off the bat, you need a CRM. And for those of you who aren't aware, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't be if you're listening to this podcast, but, a CRM is our client relationship management tool, which basically helps us, store your clients, the contracts, questionnaires, all those different things. And really, it's just to keep things organized. I know some people are like, oh, I'm old school. I go with paper and this and this. And it's like, that can work for certain things, but when it comes to managing and running a business, you really need something more robust. And I know some people are like, oh, well, it's like, 30, 40, $50 a month. And I'm just like, that's pennies when you consider how much time it will save you. And in the end, really just giving your clients a better experience will allow you to charge more as well. So it's something that will pay itself back literally with one client. It will immediately take care of itself. So that's really a great start because that will do a lot of those automations for you. That's why I always tell people, like, why are you reinventing the wheel when there are tools out here like Studio Ninja that can do a lot of these things automatically for you? So that is a number one no-brainer thing that I tell everyone on. When it comes to
I remember, before I worked for Studio Ninja, before this podcast had existed, long before, I started testing the waters with CRMs as a photographer, and I tried various different CRMs out there, and you have to kind of find one that clicks with you, right? Like not one CRM is going to work for everybody. And there are some incredible CRMs out there, for photographers, for businesses in general, not even just, for our industry. But I think it's like you say, it's so important I'm one of those people that if I'm not organized, I'm stressed. And I have to be organized down to the T. And then I'm like, everything's taken care of. It's all good. I can relax knowing that, everything's sorted in my business. But I think if you're one of those people that feels like you're kind of drowning and you're like trying to keep your head above water, a CRM is a really great place to start, right?
Yeah. I always also hear photographers saying like, well, I'm really, really busy right now. I don't have the time to do this. And I was just like, well, I would argue that you don't not have the time to do this. You need to do it now because this will help you get back some time that you are lacking right now. I always tell people you got to put in the time in order to get back the time. The way to build time in the future is to make time today to do things that will buy you back time in the future going forward. That's literally the way that you can make your own time. I always tell people automation is literally a way to buy back your time in the future. So I always say, I hate to say it, but you can never say that you don't have enough time because that just means that you have not put things into place that are helping you get back some of that.
Definitely. So, any other kind of consistency, systemization tips other than CRMs?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, I could spend all day talking about just certain parts, but I'm also a big fan of just being systematized when it comes to just shooting itself, of doing the actual photography. So I primarily do weddings. And it's not to say that I repeat the same formula at every single wedding, because obviously every day is unique, and has a different set of, challenges and things like that. But let's be real, we all do certain things repeatedly. We do the smiling look at the camera, they're looking at each other, they're walking somewhere, we kind of all have our general playbook that we use. And the one thing I've kind of noticed with photographers in general is that they kind of pick and choose different things at random. Like it's kind of like whatever they see in the moment, they're like, all right, I'm going to do this. And then they forget about all these other things that they might like to do as well. Or because they get so caught up in this. And then next thing you know, they're off doing this over here. And then they're like, oh, shoot, I forgot to do this. So I'm a big fan of like, hey, let's take the things that you normally do and figure out a flow for that would make sense on an actual shoot. So like for me, we do looking at the camera, turn and look towards each other, whisper something in her ear there, twirl her around. So like there's a certain flow to things that makes it really easy for me to get a lot of photos very quickly. It also makes it really easy for the couple to be focused on each other, instead of the fact that I'm taking photos of them. So I really feel like that's an important piece that not a lot of people have talked about too often. And so that's one of the big things I try to teach people on is it's not that you have to duplicate my system, but let's figure out what are the things that you like to do. And then let's try to make a flow for it. That way, each and every time you can figure out how to use that in some way at each wedding then. And that way your clients get a really consistent experience. And also you're not stressing out trying to think of what to do each time. Because I hear that so often. They're like, oh, I just blank when, I get in front of the camera and the couple's looking at me as to what to do. And I'm like, well, if we have a system in place, you can just go, okay, what's my first step? All right, let's do this. And then you can kind of take off from there. So it just kind of helps avoid that, oh crap moment of, what do I do? What do I pose? All of that stuff. Because I know that was certainly me earlier on in my career. And I very quickly realized, okay, if I can just kind of make some steps here for me, I can get into my flow and make things much easier so that I don't forget things. Because I don't know about you guys, but I definitely in my early days forgot like the looking at the camera or certain ones like that. And, you heard it from your couples. And that's not something anybody wants to have to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think everybody's had those days, haven't they? Where not even necessarily early on in the career, we're human. We have bad days at the end of the day. We have days where, our brain is just not with it. And, it sometimes takes some kind of coaching yourself to get into the zone, doesn't it? It's interesting you say about kind of creating that flow for your portrait sessions on a wedding day. That's definitely not something that I've ever heard before, but for people out there that get in front of a couple and feel the pressure and think, oh God, what am I going to tell them to do next? And okay, I've told them to do the one thing, but instead of focusing on what I'm shooting, I'm trying to think of the next thing.
100%.
It's a great, really, really great idea. How do you kind of tweak that? Let's say, I don't know, this flow that you've created works great with 90% of your couples. Your couples that are quite comfortable in front of the camera, they're okay with it. But then you have that 10% where they're really awkward. They don't want to do it. They kind of push back a little bit. How do you alter what you do then?
I mean, at that point, I always say, like, systems are great until the system breaks. And to be fair, every system is going to usually break at some point. There's going to be something along the line where it's just like, oh, this doesn't quite fit in here. I got to figure out how to tweak it. And it's just like anything else. If it's in your CRM, then you have to go in there, make some tweaks to your automations, your questionnaires, or things like that. If you're on an actual shoot with a couple, well, you actually, for me, if something's just not feeling right, I will just stop and I'll just tell them, I'll say, guys, is this feeling a bit weird or awkward or things like that? And they're just like, yeah, I feel like we're just not quite clicking here. I'm like, hey, it's not you, it's me. So even if maybe it's not me, maybe it is them, that's okay. I just want to kind of relieve the pressure off of them and be like, look, it's fine. And then just kind of have a conversation. That's the number one thing that I find fixes so many things, because honestly, a lot of the times we don't know what our couples are dealing with before we started that shoot. Maybe they were in a huge fight on the way over and there's still that resentment about it. There's so many different variables that we cannot control. And so when I find that they're just not really connecting, or things aren't really flowing the way that I thought they would, it's not that I need to know all of their personal stuff. What I'll kind of say is like, hey, I don't know what happened beforehand. I don't really care. That's up to the two of you. I say, could we try to put everything aside right now in the world? Like, let's put your phones away. Let's just connect and remember why it is that the two of you are here today, which is because the two of you care so much about each other that you want to spend the rest of your lives together. So let's make sure that we focus on that energy. And right now, I actually want you to tell the other person, like, why are you marrying them? Like, there's 7 billion people on this planet. Why are you saying yes to them? And right then and there, usually, either something really sentimental comes out, or something very just kind of funny will usually come out too. And that usually just kind of breaks down the walls. And then I'm like, all right, everybody take a deep breath. Cool. You guys ready to go? And then I'll try to instead go back to some more like action-based stuff where, okay, go walk over there, go give her a little twirl, things like that, just to help kind of break the ice. So, some of those things might be things I normally do later on, but sometimes we have to shift, like you said. Systems are great when they're working, but when they don't, we got to know, okay, how do we pivot and get things back on course? And then you can pick right back up where you left off once things do that.
I love that. They're awesome tips. So how does all of the organization side of your business link into the more kind of practical, getting you in front of your clients, the marketing side? How does all of that come together?
Oh, it's so complex. I can't lie there. There's certainly a lot to it. I guess one of my big things that I see with photographers in general is, and I hate to say this, but this is a lot of educators market tactics, meaning like one-off things of like, hey, do really well with your SEO and that will fix everything. You're going to have leads in your inbox like crazy. Or sign up for the Knot and you'll get all these leads and you'll be fully booked up and you'll be great. Or run Facebook ads. There's so many different little tactics that I feel like people talk about. And they kind of say that there's going to be this one trick pony. And the one thing I've found after doing this for 10 years now is there is no one trick pony, and you really need a well-balanced marketing plan when it comes to things. And that's a mixture of free and paid. I know a lot of photographers don't want to hear that you need to pay for advertising and marketing, but it's true that you do. In case people aren't aware, typically you want to be spending between 5 and 10% of your total revenue on paid advertising. And so if you are grossing, let's say $100,000 a year, that means you should be spending between $5,000 and $10,000 on marketing, which I know sometimes people are like, that's a lot of money. It's like, okay, well, if you spent that, you still have $90,000 or $95,000. That's still a lot of money left over there. But we need to get ourselves in front of people. So, and especially during the pandemic, I think many people realized is certain forms of advertising just would not work for them. Like, we are in very different times. And so I really believe in just having kind of a well-rounded approach and keeping as much of that kind of as automated and simplified as possible. So like, let's just say Instagram, we're all on there. We all use it on a regular basis. What I see so many times is photographers basically, they're like, oh, I haven't posted in a while. I should probably post. And then they go sorting through for like 30 minutes trying to find that one photo that they really want to share. But usually being like, oh, I hate that, I hate that, I hate that, right? Because we're all our worst enemy. And then they find that photo and they're like, oh, shoot, what should I caption it? I don't know. I don't know. What were those other vendors that were on that wedding with me? No, I need to go back in my email and check that out so I can make sure I can tag them. And then, I guess I should probably tag the location and hashtags. And before you know it, you've spent an hour making a single post that, let's be honest, is not going to get much reach. Maybe 100 people will see it if you're lucky these days. And it's such an antiquated process because, number one, you're doing it manually. So that's your time. I always tell photographers you need to think about, instead of just jobs themselves, think about your hourly wage. That's a huge thing. So like whatever you would want to pay yourself per hour, imagine taking that out of your bank account and withdrawing it if you just spent an hour doing an Instagram post. And all of a sudden you're going to go, oh, I need to speed this up or automate it because I just lost $50 or $100 or whatever it is. So for me, I'm a big fan of Planoly. That's just the one that I've really connected with. I know a lot of others have as well. And basically, after every shoot that I do, I take all of the photos that were for my blog post and I upload those to Planoly. And then what I do is I have my virtual assistant. I'm a big fan of them because I shouldn't be doing these things. That's something that someone else can very easily do for me. And they go through and basically tag the vendors with one click because everything is all set up and organized for me. They add all the hashtags with one click and they type in the location. And that way, all I need to do is simply go in there and write a little caption and I'm all set. So I can take care of basically all of the content from like a wedding. So let's say 50 photos. I could do all of that and have it all scheduled out over a whole span of time. I could do all of that probably within about an hour or so. So I'm a big, big fan of just trying to make that as easy as possible. So I'm not spending my time in the trenches on little things like that there. So that's just kind of one example.
I love that. That's perfect. And when you're talking about kind of automating things, systemizing things, how do you feel that that's changed the way that you work in your business as your business has grown?
So I know it's a very cliche saying, but you really need to be working not in your business, but on your business. It's so true. You really need to be in the CEO position more than the day-to-day owner photographer position. Because when you're the CEO, you can really take a closer look at, are you actually turning a profit? Because I see so many people, they're like, I made, $200,000. I'm like, cool, but what was left over? And they're like, 50. I'm like, ooh, okay. Like, it's great, but there's some bigger issues that we have going on here. And by being the CEO, you can really also just have a really good understanding of basically how well-rounded is your business. I feel like so often these days, so often the focus is, and granted, I get it, we're all supposed to niche down to certain things, but I feel like when it comes to your own business, I'm not saying you have to do everything, but you at least need to understand and have a really good, vision for what your business is going to be going forward. We got to be able to plan for the future and, okay, next year, I don't want to do quite as many weddings. So therefore, I'm going to up my prices by this much in order to make all of this work out in balance. So there's little things like that it's very difficult to do when we're in the trenches, just doing the day-to-day of, oh, shoot, I got to make an Instagram post. Oh, shoot, I need to go check my email. Shoot, my bride's texting me over here. Like all these things take away our focus from the bigger picture, which is really running an efficient, profitable business that is going to be sustainable for a long time.
Definitely. I think that's something that, it's easy to get caught up in working in your business, isn't it? We sit there and think,
guilty all the time right here. I mean, we all do it.
Absolutely. We're kind of like a one-person band, when we start out, aren't we? And like you say, hiring things like a VA or someone to come in and do your social media for you or your SEO, whatever it may be. I think outsourcing has become less of a taboo. as we've gone through the last few years. I know a couple of years ago, if you outsourced, it was like the biggest kept secret ever. Like you didn't tell other people that you were outsourcing things. Whereas now it's like, hell yeah, I outsource. Why would I do it myself?
If you don't outsource, what are you doing? Like, come on. I mean, I honestly outsource everything I possibly can. I mean, heck, I even do it in my personal life. Before I met my wife, I literally had a cleaner just even for my apartment. Like I had a cleaning lady because I was just like, I hate cleaning. She's very relatively cheap. And so I pay her $50. Well, during that time, I could go out and do a shoot and make more money, which would pay for her and leave me money left over. So it absolutely makes sense to do.
Absolutely, definitely. Now, I know, Scott, something we've not touched on yet, but I know is a big passion point for you is in-person sales. Especially over here, you know, speaking as a UK photographer, it's not something that is prioritized as much over here, I don't think.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? I'm curious.
Do you know, I honestly don't know, because I can totally see the benefits and the essentially, you know, it's a money maker, isn't it? You know, we're literally avoiding making extra money from every booking that we get by doing nothing with that. So yeah, the mind boggles. Who knows why the UK don't do it as much? But I mean, for you, it's a real integral part of your business, right? So I thought it would be really good to pick your brains on, you know, how can our listeners be better serving their clients? Where do you even start with IPS?
Wow, there's so many ways to start. There's so many ways to do it. There is no, well, there is a right and wrong way, but there's multiple ways to go about doing IPS. Like I know some people do hybrid models, you know, where they offer some stuff still online where like people can purchase it on their own. And they do really, really well with that. And then other people like keep strictly to in-person only. Some people do all virtual only. So there's really no true way to do it. You can make it work as long as, this is the number one thing I tell everybody, is you need to be very clear from the start with your clients about how the whole process works. Mm-hmm. The reason IPS gets a bad rap is because people act like they're springing it on people. And they're being very salesy. Well, if from the moment somebody contacts you and they see on your website that this is the way you do things, and then you have a conversation with them and explain and show them this is how you do things, well, then you're not going to have problems with how you do things because they've agreed to be a part of that whole process there. So that's the biggest part about it is like, don't take what everyone else says about something and hold or believe it to be true, when most of the time it's usually because there is a miscommunication. And that's what really IPS boils down to, is communicating and basically showing them, here are the different things that I offer. What would you like? Mm-hmm. And it truly can be that simple. So for me, I have a little bit more complicated process for it all, where basically I do what I call a reveal party, where either virtually or in person, they come and see their photos. And basically, like, I'm actually hand holding them and showing them, here's how to access your gallery. Here's how to download things. And none of that is difficult. But it's me giving them the service of personally making sure that they understand, here's how to get everything, here's how to access everything, and here is basically everything you need related to our journey together. And I think people just appreciate that personal touch of, instead of having to read through this lengthy email that says, oh, in order to do this, all you got to do is these next 10 steps. Like, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that in today's society. Like, nobody, our attention spans are, you know, I forget what they said now, like 30 seconds. I mean, they're awful. And so by just sitting down with somebody and having a conversation, it kind of kicks things back to kind of the old school stuff, which is basically just all about having a conversation and saying, hey, these are some different things that I offer. Do you like this? And then when they say, yes, I like that, you say, cool, it's this much. And then it's very simple. You shut up and you don't talk, because the person who talks next loses. That's kind of the general motto of things there. So there's obviously a lot of complexities to all of that there. But it really can be that simple at the end of the day, where it's just simply saying, hey, here are the things I offer. Here's how this could be used in your life to show off your memories. And what do you think kind of works best for it? Because if you walk out of here without doing anything with them, let's be real, where are all your other photos? And they're like, oh, they're, on a CD in a drawer, they're on a flash drive over here. Oh, they died on my computer a few years ago. This is what we hear so often. So I'm just simply asking them, hey, let's do something with these other than just digitals. You're going to have those too, but what's a way we could preserve these? That way you could enjoy looking at them every day. And like they can see, even in my own home, I have photos all over the place. And like, I'll go say, like, this photo right here, even for myself, printing it direct, this cost me a ton of money. But guess what? Every day I walk by that photo and I smile because it reminds me of this part of my life. And I never want to forget how I felt during that time.
Yeah.
And I think anybody can relate to, having photos just like that. And then it's just a matter of saying, all right, how are we going to preserve these for you? And then just taking care of that for them. It really, really is that simple.
I guess it's kind of more rather than a sales pitch as such, which I think actually thinking about it, that's maybe what put us British people off, because we don't like awkward conversations. We don't like to put ourselves out there and necessarily kind of I don't know, ask a question that's perhaps going to provide an uncomfortable answer. So I think maybe that's something to do that, we don't like to be too salesy. We don't like to be too in your face. And I think a lot of the time that's what's associated with in-person sales, isn't it? From, years
ago.
100%.
One thing that changed everything for me was, it's tough for me to tell the story every single time. I had a couple, they got married in 2018 and the bride had cancer. And unfortunately, she lost that battle with cancer before they even got to celebrate their 1-year wedding anniversary. Mm-hmm. The story was devastating. I became very close to them. And basically, the last wish was for me to go capture basically her husband and family spreading her ashes on the beach where they first met on what would have been their 1-year wedding anniversary. I did that. I photographed that. That's the very first job I did after I left teaching. Mm. And that really kind of changed my perspective on a lot of things. And the reason it really kind of reaffirmed my position on being more of a service provider for my clients was the groom stood there and he had held the card that she never got to write for their anniversary. And he said, I have my memories up here in my head. He said, I have this card in my hand. And he said, and I have the photos in our album. It's like, that's what I have left. He's like, so all of you who are worried about your TVs, about all the having a big shiny car, he's just like, I don't know, can I curse on here?
Yeah, go for it.
That's true. You're over there. You curse a little more. He said, he's like, all of that shit doesn't matter. It just does not matter. He said, because all I would want is more time with her, because this is all I have left at the end of the day. And it was just like, okay. He truly valued it. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that till it's too late. Thankfully, a lot of us do, because this is what we do for a living. But a lot of people, unfortunately, don't realize that until it's too late. And once you can see the impact that your photos and people that have got to enjoy them on a regular basis, once you get to see that massive impact that it's had on their life and that it continues to have on their life, well, then it's not selling. It's literally providing them with a way to relive their happiest memories. Like there's no better job than that. And you literally don't have to sell when you're basically saying, hey, how can I help you preserve some of the most important moments of your life? Like that's not selling. It's simply being a service provider and saying, all right, how can I help you out?
Absolutely. It's not a similar situation in terms of, that must have been heart-wrenching for you to photograph, especially when you were so close to your couple. But I know that I've had a couple of conversations in the last few months with photographers about, you don't necessarily, or you forget sometimes, not that you don't know, but it's easy to forget that actually what we do is providing people with some really special memories. Although, yes, what we do is we go and photograph somebody's wedding, or we film somebody's wedding. And that's our primary purpose there. What comes with a lot of that is memories for people that in a few months, a few years, another decade may be gone. And that's, I think it's really easy to forget that is an element of our job. And naturally, whether we think about that or not, that's what happens. And it got brought up because there was a couple of mine a few weeks ago, and literally just a few weeks after the wedding, the groom's father died. And I'd provided sneak peeks by this point, but obviously the whole gallery wasn't delivered yet. And I'm like working as hard as I could to get this full gallery to them. And actually I sat there and I looked at the sneak peeks. I was like, there are so many beautiful images in there of that father. And literally the same day that I was sat there thinking it, they posted like a montage of my photos on Facebook to announce that he'd passed. And I just thought, that's what it's all about, like it's great taking photos at weddings. It's great chatting with everybody. It's great making those connections. But to be able to give the couple the gift of those beautiful images that they then look back and think, he had an amazing day that day. He was the life and soul of the party, or he looked proud as punch, the whole time. I think that's what it's all about in the end, isn't it?
Absolutely. I had a similar story where the dad passed away. I think it was like 4 weeks after the wedding, and the couple had reached out and said, though, like they were like, "Look, we're running out of time quick. Is there any way you could get us some more photos?" And like, I didn't charge him. I just got the whole gallery done, and literally in his last like 48 hours, he got to see all the wedding photos. And like, that's what matters at the end of the day. But again, if we're in the trenches being the worker bee people, we don't have time and space to like remember the important stuff and kind of refocus our vision and values on what it is that we do. When you are the CEO and you can step back, you can really then sometimes it's easier to appreciate everything that you do and take a look at the impact you've really had on everything, and actually be able to kind of savor the fact that you've captured things that people will treasure for the rest of their lives.
Definitely. We've gone a bit deep and emotional there, but I love it. It's I think it's a really important part of what we do, and it's so easy to forget, isn't it? So easy.
Absolutely.
To catapult to kind of the other side of things, let's move on to SEO, which I know is another big love of yours within your business, something that you're really
cold and calculated.
Is that how we're describing
I don't think anybody
today?
I don't think anybody loves SEO, but it's a big thing, and I feel like, again, it's something that gets a really big bad rap, just because of certain things, whether it's been educators or I don't know. I feel like it's always been very kind of shoved down everyone's throats about certain ways to do it and things like that. And I feel like it's one of those kind of marketing techniques and tactics that is not a big sexy one, because obviously there's no usual quick like win to it. It's a long-term play. It's technical. It's tedious. I will certainly say, I wouldn't say I enjoy it by any means, but it is a really important part to running a long-term business that's bringing leads in the door. While of course it's great, I have tons of venue planner connections, all of those things. Instagram does great for me too. But let's be real. What do we all do when we're looking for something? We hop on Google and we search for it. So like we want to be showing up there. And it is really important to show up somewhere towards those top pages, because nobody's digging down to, page 7 or so to look for anything there. Definitely. So when it comes to SEO, I find a lot of people overcomplicate it. And even a lot of the companies like website designers that say, "Oh, we'll design your website. I will take care of your SEO for you too." I just saw a friend's website the other day. They were like, "Oh yeah, we took care of his SEO." And I'm like, "You're you did? Like, you could have fooled me by this hot mess of all these things over here. I was like, you'd never even used his main keyword phrase on his homepage. You never even tagged it, like a very, very basic thing. So it's something that is not as complicated as I think most people realize. And again, it's a very systematized type of thing, which is why I'm guessing a lot of photographers don't enjoy it. But it really is simple. It's like, cool, did you get your Google Search Console set up? Are you tracking your analytics? Are you making sure that the right pages are indexed and that certain other pages are not indexed? Did you describe images? Did you change up the titles of them? And are you using words that relate to your area on your website? Like, it's kind of basic stuff when you think about it at the end of the day. Like, Google just wants to see, oh, you're a wedding photographer? Cool. Where are you? And what is it that makes you special? And what are the places that you work at? Mm-hmm. And if you tell Google those things in a clear way by using certain taggings, well, then all of a sudden you'll start moving up the food chain, so to speak. And it's after that, it's just kind of rinse and repeat as you build out content. That's the thing, is just like Instagram and TikTok and everything, Google wants content. And instead of making reels and making faces and all doing dances, instead you have to type and write, which I know some people are like, I'd rather just dance. I'm like, cool, you go ahead and do that. I am not a dancing person, so I am not doing that. I will embarrass myself. So I would rather just go the SEO route, and that's been my play. And during the pandemic, I did a lot of work on my site. And now it's been, nearly 2 years, but now it's really starting to pay off. Mm-hmm. Like now I'm just booked a $9,000 wedding and a $6,000 wedding within this past few days. So, it can pay off. Is it always going to be like that every single week? No, of course not. But it does begin to pay off down the road. So it's one of those strategies. Again, it's not fun. It's tedious. It's a long-term play. But when it really starts paying off, then it's kind of on cruise control now for me. And I can kind of just sit back and let all these leads start coming in. And it's been really wonderful.
Amazing. And now a lot of what we've spoken about today, you mentioned that you coach other photographers, you mentor them to kind of teach them your tricks of the trade, I guess. So talk to us a little bit more about that. How did you get into mentoring? How are you finding it?
Sure. I mean, it was kind of a natural thing for me to go back to teaching, because, while I do love doing photography and all of that, I really, really love getting to see people's eyes light up, or when they have that aha moment. That was my favorite part with kids, where I'm like, you realize it's not this complicated. All you got to do is this. And they're like, oh. And so I love to do that with photographers too, where, I'm like, talk to me about what you're doing. I'm like, you realize you could just do it this way. And they just go, I had never even thought about that before. So, basically I created, it's called Purpose and Process, because I really feel like everybody talks about process, but nobody really talks about, okay, if we're doing all these processes, why are we doing them? What is the actual purpose behind them? There has to be more than just somebody told me to, or, that's what they do. Like, I really want to establish, basically, is it because you're setting yourself up for better IPS sales? Is it because you want clients to go through a certain experience with you? Whatever it is, like, let's figure out, first define what is the goal of what we're trying to do, and then build all the processes to reach back to that goal, instead of building out the processes and then trying to somehow weave the goal in there along the way. That's what I see more often. And I feel like that's a very kind of convoluted and messed up idea, when really it's like, if we're really about this, we need to make that from the start, and then we can build from there. So I have a free Facebook group where I could go live every week, and people can, interact with me there. They can post up any questions that they have. I got a weekly newsletter, which has some exclusive content and stuff in there for everybody. I actually just talked about SEO this week, about keyword cannibalization, which is a big, fancy, scary term, I know, for a lot of people. But it's pretty much the number one issue I typically see on websites. So you can check that out there. And I'm doing my first workshop in September. And then I also offer one-on-one coaching for photographers based on, what they're looking for.
Amazing.
So I actually have a custom little unique link for you guys for podcast listeners. So it's purposeandprocess.co/Studio Ninja.
Amazing. Thank you so much. For your Facebook group, sorry, Scott, I just missed the name of the group if anyone wants to come find you.
Sure. It's Purpose and Process Mastermind. So on that link, the Studio Ninja link, I will have links to everything right on there. And there'll be some few little special offers too that you'll just have to go and check out yourselves.
Oh, very, very lucky. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now we're going to wrap things up, Scott, because I know that your little baby will be begging to have you back very, very soon. If you could start your career all over again, is there anything you'd change, anything you'd do differently?
That's a great question. I think I would be less scared of spending money on coaching early on. I did workshops. I did lots and lots of workshops earlier on, and they were great. And I did learn a lot. But the one thing I realized was that once I kind of had some basics down, a coach who would work with me one-on-one really expedited things so much faster than just being in kind of general things like a workshop. So like I still use a coach these days and he's $500 an hour. And I know most people would be like, oh my gosh, that's outrageous. But what I do is I look at my return on it. And like the one time we chatted about restructuring some of my packages. And after we did that, I started booking higher packages. I started being more profitable in all those packages. And so in the 1 month after I just paid him $500 for an hour at a time, I had now profited $8,000 more than I would have before. Wow. So I'm like, yes, I spent $500, but I also now made 8,000 more than I would have before. So, I know sometimes it's scary, but I mean, I always tell people like, don't just go throwing your money anywhere. Like you really got to vet your people that you're working with. But at the end of the day, if you are motivated, find the right person that you can connect with and then invest in them and then put in the work and the results will come for sure.
I love that. Perfect. If you could add a final piece of advice, the golden nugget takeaway, if you like, from today's episode for our listeners, something that maybe has made a big difference in your personal life, your business life, what would you say the most important bit would be?
Balance. balance. Okay. I don't know about you guys. Obviously, 2020 was kind of a wash. 2021 then was absolutely insane. And I shot more weddings than I ever want to shoot again. And I had such little time for myself, for my family. And it was just constantly just like, hey, you want to do this? No, I got a wedding. You want to do this? No, I got a wedding. And while I truly, truly love my job, it just beat me down to the end. And so now I really limit the amount of weddings that I'm willing to take on. And I could not be happier with doing that. While I absolutely love what I do, I also love getting to spend time with my family. Like this past weekend, we had a huge party here at our house. We had 20 plus people here and we got to see all of my wife's friends' kids. Like, it's stuff that if I had a wedding, I would have completely missed out on that. Mm-hmm. And so I really, really changed my schedule this year. And I found that when I have balance, I'm a much happier person. And I also run and have a better business in the end because of that fact. So if you're feeling burnout, I would say you probably need to look at, do you have balance? There's definitely a time for hustle as you're building your business. I always tell people there's definitely the hustle period, but it shouldn't remain a hustle period for an extended period of time. Because after that, it's not hustle. It's just basically beating yourself down and not having any type of actual life. And, time is very limited. Let's try to enjoy it and have a great balance of everything while we're here.
Awesome. If our listeners would like to find out more about you, how can they do that?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is the Facebook group or the website there. So it's purposeandprocess.co. That's going to be every single thing on there. And of course, you can find me on Instagram and all that stuff too. You can always DM me if you need to.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, thank you so much again for, as I say, carving out the time, coming and joining us, having a chat and releasing all your deepest, darkest business secrets. It's been really, really appreciated.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Sally. I really appreciate it.
Amazing. Well, I will let you get back to your little one, but thank you so much again, and hopefully I'll catch you soon.
All right. Thanks so much, Sally.
Thanks, Scott. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Okay, guys, that's everything from me today. Thank you so much again to Scott for coming and joining us. I learnt loads, so I hope you guys did too. In-person sales is totally something that we should look into some more. If you'd like to see the show notes, you can head to www.studioninja.co/episode 69. Please, as always, don't forget to rate us on the podcast platform that you're listening on. A little bit of love goes a very long way. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NinjaCast, brought to you by Studio Ninja. Beautifully designed and super easy to use, Studio Ninja will help you manage your leads, clients, shoots, invoices, contracts, workflows, and so much more. To learn more or start your 30-day free trial, go to www.studioninja.co.